from the KHOU11 studio. 11 Studios. It's Great Day Houston. And now, here's your host, Deborah Duncan.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Great Day. Okay, I always love walking back from the green room and turning the corner into the studio because you never know who's going to show up in the audience today. And oh, look at that, Bubba and baby Isaac. They are part of the Misery Natural Hair Show, and they're also heading up a toy drive for Toys for Tots. Welcome. All right. Well, ladies, how many of you have ever said jokingly you need a wife? It would be nice to have someone do carpool when you can't, have dinner on the table when you're tired, and attend the PTA meetings while you're at the doctor's office with your sick child. As we've seen on some popular reality shows, having an extra wife or 2 or 3 or 4 isn't a wish. Instead, it's real life. Shows like Sister Wives, Real Sex, and Big Love are turning traditional relationships upside down. Are TV shows and the media changing our culture and reshaping our thoughts about romance, or just exposing what humans have always done? You might have guessed our first topic this morning is a mature one. If you have young children, you might have them join Barney or Dora the Explorer in the other room. So, is the institution of marriage past its prime? Is monogamy monotony? Let's ask the therapist. Joining us with this growing trend, please welcome certified sex therapist and relationship expert, Emily Diala.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. There are some things that human beings have just done since the beginning of time, but it was shh. I remember back in the 70s when people were talking about this thing, in the 60s, the communal living in the 60s, 70s, this thing called shacking up, and it was like, this is ridiculous.
Yep.
They are not married. So,
yeah.
Again, things that have happened in the past, but we started bringing it out in the open. So how much of this is what media tells us is okay versus what's been going on all the time?
I think there's something to be said that this has been going on for a long time. And honestly, this is something, if you look back, hundreds of thousands of years, people were more nomadic, that children were raised in the tribe. There was already this kind of the same concept going on. But I think as we move forward in history, especially with religion coming into play and different cultures, and we see more of this traditional nuclear family. And I think we're starting to enter into a new era where that's starting to break down a little bit.
And part of it, too, is that we live longer. And so people change. When you got married, it's like, would that be the same person you'd choose in the latter half of your life?
Exactly. I think, some argue that it's a lot to ask of one person to be not only your emotional equal, your intellectual equal, a good sexual partner, a co-parent, your financial partner, a friend. I mean, that's a lot to ask of one person, and to expect them to be good at that for 30, 40, 50 years. I think there's something to think about there.
Yeah. All right. So you're not advocating that people, but you're just saying there's a point where society's rules clash with human nature.
I think there's something to be said to that, especially with women entering into the workforce now, becoming less dependent on men over the last, 60 years.
We used to need one. Now we can want one.
Exactly. It's totally changed.
Well, no, but true. I mean, really, if you used to need one, especially if you had your children and stuff, you weren't allowed to get jobs.
It's true.
You weren't allowed to get jobs, and so you're like, okay, I'm taking men, I'm taking a man, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the men were like, if they got left without a wife, they're like, well, I got 5 kids. I need a woman.
Exactly. Where's my plan B?
Yeah, where's my plan B? All right, let's go through some of kind of the different definitions of these different relationships. Polyamory.
So, there's kind of a difference but overlap between the concept of an open relationship and polyamory. The way I think of polyamory is going to be something more like what you would see in the show like Sister Wives, where, there's more commitment amongst, more than one person. Whereas an open relationship, there's a little bit more variability in terms of the extent of emotional or physical boundary with other people.
Yeah. The other one is plural marriages, which is what you kind of see in Sister Wives as well.
Right. Same kind of thing.
Because they've had their ceremony and commitment and consider, he considers each one of those women his wife. And a lot of people ask the question, how do you get by with that legally? Because you can't be married to more than one. And what they do is they'll file, like the first marriage certificate is filed with the state. The other ones are not filed with the state. So you're not technically married in the government's eyes.
It's more of a religious ceremony.
Yeah. I got to tell you, when I first heard about the show Sister Wives and I started watching it, I was like, what? And then it started to make sense. They're making it make sense, right? Because they're like, with all these these kids are like, there are times when I'm not there for this, and another mom, they have somebody else to go to.
Right.
But by the same token, when you have one man who has 50 million children, I mean, there's that connection with daddy is compromised.
It's true, and attention is split. You know, I guess there's argument that the other wives can kind of make up for that. But, you know, kids like having multiple adult role models, and I think oftentimes, you know, there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
All right, we have a caller who has a question. And by the way, if you have relationship issues, you can give us a call at 713-284-1055, 713-284-1055. Emily can address any issue, not just what we're talking about right now. But Scott, good morning.
Good morning. Been in a long-time relationship, committed, loving, trusting relationship, and we're exploring the option of swinging and wanted to know your thoughts. I will hang up and listen.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the idea of swinging where couples will go out and they say it's not cheating on each other because the other partner knows.
Right, that's really the key here is open, honest communication. Having a strong sense of self-awareness and not only respect for yourself, but also for other people. So in swinging relationships, they tend to be more sexually oriented. So, you know, in addition to having that intimacy with your primary partner, you may swap and have that with other people as well. You know, one of the big risks there is going to be jealousy, because that's what a lot of us face. Some argue that jealousy is a learned behavior and can therefore be unlearned. You know, I think there is something to think about there, but it can work for some people.
Yeah, and of course the other issue is sex is a very psychological and emotional thing.
For most people.
I actually did a show where we interviewed a lot of folks who were swingers. And there were some who could, you know, successfully just say, hey, it's just what we do.
They can separate the two.
But so many of them, when we started peeling back the layers, there was this self-esteem issue. There were women who had been sexually abused, and so they kept thinking their answer was going to come somehow through sex to get over that type of thing.
Right.
So it all goes back to what, I guess, what your reason for doing something is.
Yeah, as I always preach when I'm on the show, you want to kind of take a look inside and ask what your motivation is for engaging in the behavior. Whenever I'm working with a couple on starting to open things up, one of the first things I say is, okay, if there are any underlying individual issues, childhood traumas, family of origin, we need to get those worked out, because you can't do this if you're coming from a childlike place. You really need to be.
Wall.
It is. I think you really need to be a fully functional, healthy, mature adult. That's the only way it works.
All right. We have Monica on the line. Good morning, Monica.
Hi.
What's your question?
How do you be in a marriage with your husband? He does nothing. He doesn't want to participate with the family. Our sexual activities are not good. What do we do?
So it's almost like he's already divorced himself of the family.
Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge.
It's a big breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on kind of how much you're willing to tolerate. Some people will live with that because they feel, you know, they really value the institution of marriage, and I completely understand that. But if you feel like your basic emotional and physical needs aren't being met, then if after even some counseling that still isn't happening, it may be time to consider other options.
Yeah.
And that's a lot.
Could be divorce. Again, you don't like, but you know, you work with couples to head toward reconciliation, if that's at all possible.
Most of the time, but you know, to be honest, sometimes I get couples into my office and I think it can do them a service, in fact, just to explore the idea of what would it like? What would it be like if you split up?
Well, how many
sometimes
times have
that
you
can
seen...
make them want to stay together even more.
And how many times have you seen people who end up breaking up who become best friends?
They do.
They weren't good husbands and wives, but they become best friends.
Right.
But in her case, I think if she's not in, if Monica, if you all are not in therapy and you want to save that marriage, therapy is a great place to start, because it sounds like what you're saying, he's not interested in anything with the family.
Right.
Then he's almost already left.
Exactly, and there has to be some, he needs to at least want to make things better, and if he doesn't, if he's completely disengaged at this point, then that is going to be a little bit more challenging.
We've talked about sex, but I'm going to kind of go down a little bit and talk about something a little bit different. It's really about the power of touch and the power of connection. I don't know if you all have heard of this, but there is this place called a Snuggle House. It has opened in Madison, Wisconsin, and it offers for $60 an hour snuggle sessions, because we all need a hug every now and then. It's just, completely, there's no sex involved or anything. It is just, you get with a professional hugger, cuddler, or snuggler, and they claim they're just trying to recognize the importance of physical touch. So you get to go to a snuggle house for $60. Look, I'll snuggle you for $30, okay? That's just So what does that say? And the fact that people are showing up.
I know. So this is actually something that Japan has been doing for a longer time now. So it's something that I think we're starting to see more and more around the world. You know, there's something to be said for the power of touch. There's no doubt that that is therapeutic and healing, and that most humans need that at some point. And so, you know, I think there's probably a large population who might enjoy something like this. I think, you know, initial reaction is, okay, that's weird because it's so far from what
my initial reaction is I want a full-on massage.
I know, right? Well, you know, a lot of people, prior to these sorts of things, you know, when I have a client come in who maybe hasn't been with anyone for a while, I'll encourage them to go get regular massages. It's non-sexual, but it's just having that focused attention and that touch that can do wonders. So I can definitely understand the concept.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you'd like more information on Emily's marriage tips, just log on to our site at greatdayhouston.com. Okay, it's time for our Facebook question of the day.
Facebook.
Today is D-Day for the Astrodome. So on Facebook, we want to know, do you think it should stay or should it go? And what should they do with the space or the dome if they renovate it? Log on and let us know what you think. Plus, the daughter of the man responsible for building the dome shares the history with us. Coming up next, ever notice that no matter how much you work out, sometimes there are little stubborn areas of fat that just won't go away? Well, there's a new kind of gym helping to change that. Great Day's Courtney Pertna is sweating it out. Wait, Courtney, are you sweating it out? Looks like you're just relaxing to me.
Well, Deborah, I actually am just relaxing here, and although it looks like I might be training for some kind of space mission, this suit has hundreds of little suction cups that are helping to increase the blood flow in my body and reduce cellulite. How awesome is that? After the break, we'll take a closer look at hypoxia therapy. It's a high-tech way to get fit.